Alright, everyone, welcome back to the show. I know I've been away for a little while now. I was on vacation. It's the first vacation I've had in years. We went on a Disney cruise, and I'm debating whether or not to do a vlog about my experience on the Disney cruise, because I don't know how many of you would want to hear my opinion on it. But it was very fun. The only thing I would say is it's a bit pointless to go on if you don't have children, and my niece and nephew were with us, and we mostly went on that cruise for them, so they had a blast, and I had some fun too. It's just I wish they had a more affordable drink package available. But since I'm still riding that high of having my first vacation in a long time, I figured we stick to the theme of being at sea, going on an adventure, and do Terry and the Pirates. This was one of the options for a character spotlight the week before last. And the reason why, well, the first reason is because I'm still in vacation mode in my brain, even though I'm back to work and everything. But the second reason is I've noticed with quite a few of the artists that we've covered on this channel, a lot of them reference Terry and the Pirates for inspiring them. So I figured, why not? Why don't we actually look into Terry and the Pirates? And my first hurdle I realized very quickly on is outside of advertising for the Terry and the Pirates collection, there's not too much about the series. At least with articles and stuff. There's like an IMDb page about the old serials, more advertisements. So, the Terry and the Pirates movie. It's, Master Collection. Comic Book Plus. Maybe we can check that out later. But anyway. As usual, we are going to start with Wikipedia and go from there. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to cover a little bit of the first paragraph here, and then we're going to switch over to Milton Caniff. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And read a little bit more about his, history. So, alright. Terry and the Pirates is an action-adventure comic strip created by cartoonist Milton Caniff, which originally ran from October 22nd, 1934 to February 25th, 1973. So, a decent amount. Captain Joseph Patterson, editor for the Chicago Tribune New York Syndicate, had admired Caniff's work on the children's adventure strip Dickie Dare and hired him to create a new adventure strip, providing Caniff with the title and locale. The Dragon Lady leads the evil pirates. Conflict with the pirates was diminished in priority when World War II started. Wait, huh? Alright, title and locale. Dragon Lady leads the evil pirates. Conflict with the pirates was diminished. I feel like they added that sentence in a little too early. Alright. The strip was read by 31 million newspaper subscribers between 1934 and 1946. In 1946, Caniff won the first Cartoonist of the Year award from the National Cartoonist Society for his work on Terry and the Pirates. Well, that's cool. Alright, so writer Tom D. Haven described Terry and the Pirates as the greatest strip of World War II and the Casablanca of comics. Alrighty. Alright, so authors Milton Caniff and George Wunder. Alright. Current status concluded. Yeah. Alright, launch date, syndicates, adventure. Okay. Oh my gosh, I just got back from vacation. Why am I still tired? Alright, so let's take a look at Milton Arthur Paul Caniff. He, February 28th. Oh, that's my birthday! I was born on February 28th, too! 1907 to April 3rd, 1988. Oh. Alright. Was an American cartoonist known for Terry and the Pirates and Steve Canyon comic strips. What the heck is Steve Canyon? American finisher. Ended shortly after Caniff's death. Oh. Alright. Caniff was born in Hillsboro, Ohio. He was an Eagle Scout and a recipient of the Distinguished Eagle Scout Award from the Boy Scouts of America. Neat. Caniff did cartoons for local newspapers while studying at Stivers High School, now Stivers School for the Arts, in Dayton, Ohio. Oh, I went to university in Dayton, Ohio. We have so much in common! At Ohio State University, Caniff joined the Sigma Chi fraternity and later illustrated for the Magazine of Sigma Chi and the Norman Shield. The fraternity's pledgeship/reference manual. Graduating in 1930, Caniff began at the Columbus Dispatch, where he worked with the noted cartoonist Billy Ireland and Dudley Fisher. Billy Ireland. Known throughout Ohio. Dudley Fisher. Right around home. Okay. Alright, but Caniff's position was eliminated during the Great Depression. Oh. Caniff related later that he had been uncertain of whether to pursue acting or cartooning as a career, and that Ireland said, "Stick to your inkpots, kid. Actors don't eat regularly." And depending on where you are in comics, neither do cartoonists. Alright. He died April 3rd, 1988, and was buried in the Mount Repose Cemetery, Haverstraw, New York. Alright. Alright, in 1932, Caniff moved to New York City to accept an artist job with the feature services of the Associated Press. He did general assignment art for several months, drawing the comic strips Dickie Dare and the Gay 30s. Okay, yes, I know that gay used to mean happy, but it's still funny. Alright, then inherited a panel cartoon name, Mr. Gillfeather, in September 1932, when Al Cap quit the feature. Blah. Alright, Caniff was also hired by his friend Bill Dror when Dror took over the Chick or Sheik Young created comic strip Dom Dora in 1932 and needed help while learning the routines of a daily cartoon strip. Caniff ghost wrote and drew a number of strips, working closely with Dror for the first year and a half of Dror's tenure on the strip. While some critics claimed that Caniff was largely responsible for the strip's quality at the time, Caniff himself took credit only for some of the art and none of the writing, calling Dror a good gag man. Caniff continued Gillfeather until spring of 1933, when it was retired in favor of a generic comedy panel cartoon called The Gay 30s, which he produced until he left AP in the autumn of 1934. In July 1933, Caniff began an adventure fantasy strip at Dickie Dare, influenced by series such as Flash Gordon and Brick Bradford. The eponymous main character was a youth who dreamed himself into adventures with such literary and legendary persons as Robin Hood, Robinson Crusoe, and King Arthur. In the spring of 1934, Kniff changed the strip from fantasy to reality when Dickey no longer dreamed his adventures but experienced them as he traveled the world with a freelance writer, Dickey's adult mentor, Dynamite Dan Flynn. I wonder if Flynn is in reference to Errol Flynn. Alright, so Terry and the Pirates. Okay, so we're going to get more into Terry a little bit later, but let's look at the influence. Alright, Kniff's style had a tremendous influence on the artists who drew American comic books and adventure strips during the mid-20th century. Evidence of its influence can be seen in the work of comic book strip artists such as Jack Kirby, Frank Robbins, Lee Elias, Bob Kane, Mike Straczynski, John Romita Sr., Johnny Craig, William Overgaard, and Doug Widely, to name a few. European artists were also influenced by a style, including Belgian artist Gigi Hubensson and Italian artist Hugo Pratt. Why does that name sound familiar? I'm an idiot. Corto Maltese. Alright, the Kniff State hired special effects artist John R. Elias to restore for release the 34 episodes of the 1958-99 Steve Canyon. Kniff as a comic book character. Alright. European comics. Alright, so. Alright, and Steve Canyon, action strip. Okay. Alright. Male. What? A special version of Terry the Pirates without Terry, but featuring the blonde bombshell Burma. Kniff donated all his work on this strip to the armed forces. The strip was available only in military newspapers. After complaints from the Miami Herald about the military version of the strip being published by military newspapers in the Herald circulation territory, the strip was renamed Mail Call and given a new star, Miss Lace, a beautiful woman who lived near every military base and enjoyed the company of enlisted men, whom she addressed as generals. Her function, Kniff often said, was to remind servicemen that what they were fighting for, and while the situation of the strip included much double entendre, Miss Lace was not portrayed as being What? How is that not promiscuous? Oh my god. I've ended his association with Terry and the Pirates. Well, the strip was a major... Huh? Why would he end it? Malcolm was notable for its honest depiction of what the servicemen encountered. One strip displays Lace stating a soldier on leave who has lost an arm. She lost her temper when a civilian insulted him for that disability. Another strip had her dancing with a man in civilian clothes. A disgruntled GI shoved and mocked him for having an easy life, but Lace's partner was in fact an ex-GI, blinded in battle. Kniff continued Mail Call until several months after VJ Day, ending in March 1946. Interesting. So, the totally not about a promiscuous woman comic book actually discussed problems that actual GIs were dealing with at the time. Neat. Alright, in 1946, Kniff ended his association with Terry and the Pirates. While the strip was a major success, it was not owned by its creator, but by its distributing syndicate, the Chicago Tribune and New York Daily News. Yeah, them's the pits. A common practice was syndicated comics at the time. And when Kniff, growing more and more frustrated with the lack of rights to the comic strip he produced, was offered the chance to own his own strip by Marshall Field, publisher of the Chicago Sun, the cartoonist quit Terry to produce a strip for Field Enterprises. Wait, why would you not take up that offer? Huh. Kniff produced his last strip of Terry and the Pirates in December of 1946 and introduced his new strip, Steve Kenyon, in the Chicago Sun-Times to follow the following month. Blech. At the time, Kniff was one of only 2 or 3 syndicated cartoonists who owned their creations, and he attracted considerable publicity as a result of this circumstance. Alright, so a little bit more about the man behind the pencil, but now let's get into the actual comic strip. Alright, so the publication history for Terry and the Pirates began October 22nd, 1934, and the Sunday color pages began in December 9th of 1934. Alright. Initially, the storylines of the daily strips and the Sunday pages were different, but on August 26, 1936, they merged into a single storyline. Although Terry and the Pirates had made kind of famous, the strip was owned by the Syndicate, which was not uncommon at the time. Seeking creative control of his own work, Kniff left the strip in 1946. His last Terry strip was published on December 29th. Yep. The following year, the Field Syndicate... we already got to there. Alright, after Kniff's departure, Terry and the Pirates was assigned to Associate Press artist George Wonder. Wonder drew highly detailed panels, but some critics, notably Maurice Horn, claimed that it was sometimes difficult to tell one character from another, and that his work lacked Kniff's essential humor. Nevertheless, Wonder kept the strip going for another 27 years until its discontinuation on February 25th, 1973, by which time Terry had reached the rank of colonel. Alright. And there was a reboot. On March 26, 1995, Michael Uslan and the brothers Hinderbrandt produced an updated version of the strip which carried over no continuity with the original. The Dragon Lady is portrayed as a Vietnam War orphan. Interesting. The Hildebrandt-Uslan team left the strip and was replaced on April Fool's Day, 1996, with the team of Dan Spiegel and Jim Clark writing. The strip ended in July 27th, 1997. Yeah, it does seem like that they were changing quite a few things of it, so I don't suppose it would last very long. Alright. Let's get into the characters. The adventure begins with young Terry Lee, a wide-awake American boy arriving in then-contemporary China with his friend, two-fisted journalist Pat Ryan. Seeking a lost gold mine, they meet George Webster Connie Confucius, interpreter and local guide. Initially, crudely drawn backgrounds and stereotypical characters surrounded Terry as he matched wits with pirates and various other villains. He developed an ever larger circle of friends and enemies, including Big Stoop, Captain Judas, I wonder if he's a friend or an enemy, Cherry Blaze, Chopstick Joe, Cue Ball, and Dude Hennick. These names are just as funky as the Dick Tracy ones. Right, most notable of all was the famed femme fatale, the Dragon Lady, who started as an enemy and later, during World War II, became an ally. Kniff included a number of non-American female antagonists, all of whom refer to themselves in the third person. He has an archetype. These include the Dragon Lady and crooks and spies like Sanjak and Rogue. In a rather bold move for a 1940s comic strip, Sanjak was hinted at being a lesbian cross-dresser with designs on Terry's girlfriend, April Kane. Wow, that is progressive for the time. Kniff purportedly named the character after an island next to the Isle of Lesbos. Yeah, I think we can go ahead and assume that she is a lesbian. Alright, over time, owing to a successful collaboration with cartoonist Noel Sickles, Kniff dramatically improved to produce some of the most memorable strips in the history of the medium. Ray Bailey, Kniff's assistant on Terry and the Pirates, went on to create his own adventure strip, Bruce Gentry. Huh. Alright. So here is our main cast. Let me set something on fire real quick. That's actually quite interesting. Like, how on earth did he get away with hinting that one of the characters was a lesbian? Because I think that would have been nailed pretty solidly back in the 1940s. But I guess maybe he was just coy enough about it where it could have been interpreted either way. Alright, so main characters. Terry Lee, a teenager when the series begins, he is excitable and loves adventure. As the series goes on, he matures and joins the U.S. Army, becoming a pilot. After World War II, he works for the government in the post-war territories. In his last comic strip in February 25th, 1973, Colonel Lee is a USFA officer who helps break up a heroin smuggling ring, which results in the arrest of its head and the president of a foreign country. All right. Pat Ryan, Terry's friend and mentor, a writer and man of action who helps his young protege out of scraps. When World War II began, he joins the U.S. Navy and sees action in the Pacific. All right. Connie. George Webster Confucius, a Chinese man Terry and Pat hire as a guide. He speaks in pidgin English and refers to himself in the third person. He is fiercely loyal to the duo. He eventually works with Pat as a part of a Chinese resistance against the Japanese in the war. And I am sure he was totally not depicted as a stereotype. Okay. Big Stoop, a 9-foot-tall Mongol whom Connie helped when he was being picked on by bullies. He remains with the trio out of gratitude. Immensely strong and mute, he earns his nickname from the phrase, "he stoops to conquer." Never heard that phrase before. He was once a servant of the Dragon Lady. She cut out his tongue when he was young, earning his hatred. He works with Connie in the Chinese resistance during the war. The Dragon Lady, a beautiful but cold pirate queen who clashes with Terry and Pat continuously. As the Japanese invade China, she becomes a resistance leader attacking Japanese forces, making it clear it is not out of patriotism but wanting to keep her riches intact. It is hinted she is in love with Pat, but she is unwilling to give up her empire for him. After the war ends, she returns to criminal activities. Oh, love triangle. Weirdly enough, I've actually heard of the Dragon Lady before. It was a video I believe it was talking about Morticia, Vampira, and Elvira, like talking about how their similarities, differences, and their influences. And I believe it was the woman who played Vampira who used the Dragon Lady as one of her influences. Alright, Burma. A real name unknown, a con artist, former pirate confederate, and sultry singer with a good heart. She encounters Terry and Pat several times. She and Terry share a casual romantic connection, but Burma is afraid of letting it become serious. She has a habit of singing St. Louis blues. Alright. Norman D. Drake, an heiress and Pat's true love. They grew close when he worked for her father. Her high society aunt refused to see her marry a commoner and forced her into an arranged marriage to the weak-willed Tony Sandhurst. When she and Pat meet again, she is pregnant with Tony's child and is committed to the marriage. When they meet again during the war, Normandy's child, Marilee, is 4 years old. When she discovers that Tony is working with the Axis powers, Normandy still refuses to divorce him. Why not, girl? He's a Nazi sympathizer. Why not kick the Nazi to the curb? Alright. Anyway. Raven Sherman, an heiress who used her fortune to support missionary work in China. She and Pat seem romantic, but she falls for pirate Dude Hennick. She dies in Hennick's arms after being attacked by Captain Judas and is buried in the China desert. Following her death in October 1941, Milton Caniff received annual reminders of her What? Wait a second, the fans were sending him reminders of her death? That is so weird. But I guess that's not the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Like, I know after the whole Batman-Catwoman wedding debacle, quite a few fans got salty on Twitter and just would not stop harassing DC for not letting their wedding happen. So, I guess that's not the weirdest thing I've seen. Alright. April Kane, a Southern belle who wins Terry's heart. Aw, now Terry gets a love interest. Like, Pat does not seem like he has a very good love life. Alright. She works as Pat's secretary when he is an agent of the Dragon Lady, but she leaves when she becomes the target of a blackmailer. She returns in 1944, having spent the last few years in a Japanese prison camp. Ooh. The experience has hardened her, and she tries to make Terry jealous by cavorting with Flip Corkin. She tries to set up an airfield near an island army base, but she learns too late that the army is abandoning the island, and she is stranded there alone. Wow. She got the bad ending. Alright, Flip Corkin, Terry's flight instructor in the Air Force, who delivers the Sunday Page lecture on military duty, based on Phil Cochran. Phil Cochran. Oh, okay. Alright, Taffy Trucker, Flip's girlfriend, an army nurse. She briefly develops amnesia and is rescued by Pat, and they connect romantically. She returns to Flip after regaining her memory. Okay. Hotshot Charlie. Charles C. Charles. What an original name. Alright, a comically flippant Boston pilot who becomes Terry's best friend in the Air Force. After the war ends, he is stifled by civilian life and jumps at the chance to help Terry out in post-war Asia doing government work. Alright, recurring. Alright, Captain Blaze, a boisterous English pirate who helps Terry and Pat out against the Dragon Lady, later returning to help Pat out in China. Captain Judas, a debonair criminal who clashes with the heroes several times. A former partner of Burma's, he sustains severe facial burns when she throws a lamp in his face. He shoves Raven out of a truck, leading to her fatal injuries before being shot by Duke Hennick and presumably killed. Papa Paizon, a corpulent criminal Terry and Pat meet in China, who later returns as an Axis agent during the war. Oh, is that supposed to be an Italian name? Alright, Nasty. Nastalthea Smite Heatherstone, a young heiress Terry and Burma rescue from a crashed plane. Her bratty and selfish attitude drives them crazy and nearly gets them killed. How does a bratty attitude almost get someone killed? Okay. Years later, the now-grown Nasty returns to involve Terry and Charlie in her efforts to ship food to Chinese refugees, which is really an attempt to win Terry. She tries to woo Charlie to get at Terry. Ladies, I don't know how to break it to you, but flirting with other guys is not going to get another dude to like you. Alright, Tony Sandhurst, Normandy's rich but immoral husband who puts himself above everyone. He tries to have Pat put in jail for ruining his business and is later revealed to be working for the Axis during the war and becomes a criminal kingpin in the post-war period. Okay, Normandy, leave the dude. Nobody is going to blame you for leaving the criminal Nazi. Alright. Who is she? The Dragon Lady's aide and confidant who sometimes impersonates her for some missions. She seems interested in a romance with Terry. She is apparently drowned under a sinking ship with new love pirate Johnny Jingo. Alright, Cherry Blaze, Captain Blaze's hefty daughter who hates her father with a passion. She returns during the war working with the Axis, but oh wow, that escalated quickly, but is arrested for her crimes. I hate my dad so much I'm gonna become a Nazi. Yeah, that checks out. Alright, Seng Seng, a dim-witted would-be warlord who clashes with Pat and the Dragon Lady. He later marries Cherry Blaze, but is arrested with her. Chopstick Joe, an underworld figure who is a friendly rival with the Dragon Lady. Dude Hennick, an old friend of Pat's and ace pilot who helps the heroes out. He goes to work for Raven Sherman, the two fall in love, but she ends up dying in his arms. He vanishes from the strip, and a Christmas 1945 strip has kind of saying he based the character on a pilot friend, Frank Cliff, who was killed in Shanghai, and Dude died with him. Alright. Sanjak, a French woman who dresses like a man using a monocle to hypnotize people. She works for the Axis. So many Nazis in this comic. Impersonating a pilot to infiltrate Terry's Air Force base and is apparently killed in a crashing plane. Yeah, this is the, that was the lesbian character, wasn't she? Alright. Jos Good, a Southern soldier who serves with Pat, Connie, and Big Stoop in the Pacific. Snake Tumblin, a fellow pilot of Terry's. He is apparently killed in a crashing plane. However, Kniff's final strip shows him seemingly alive but blinded. And Jane Allen, an army nurse who falls in love with Snake. She and Terry seem to be getting closer, but when she sees a picture of Snake alive, she leaves Terry on the tarmac in Kniff's final strip. Man, both Terry and Pat cannot catch a break in love. Alright. During World War II, Kniff became increasingly concerned by the contemporary Second Sino-Japanese War, but he was prevented by his syndicate from identifying the Japanese directly. Kniff referred to them as the invaders, and they soon became an integral part of the storyline. After America's entry into World War II, Terry joined the United States Army Air Forces. The series then became almost exclusively about World War II, with much action centering on a U.S. Army base in China. This change of tone is considered the end of the strip's prime, although it remained highly acclaimed. Terry gained a new mentor in flying instructor Colonel Flip Corkin, a character based on the real-life Colonel Flip Cochran of the 1st Army Commando Group. Comic relief was provided by fellow flyer Hotshot Charlie. Pat, Connie, and Big Stoop still made occasional guest appearances as Marine Commandos, while the Dragon Lady and her pirates became Chinese guerrillas fighting the Japanese. Alright. One of the highlights of this period was the October 17th, 1943 Sunday page, The Pilot's Creed. Corkin gives the recently commissioned Terry a speech on his responsibilities as a fighter pilot, including the need to consider all who have contributed to the development of his plane, respect his support crew, spare a thought for the ones killed in the fighting, and respect military bureaucracy, which, for better or for worse, has kept the American Army going for over 150 years. In an unusual honor, the episode was read aloud in the U.S. Congress and added to the congressional record by Congressman Carl Hinshaw. Huh. Interesting. The intensely patriotic Kniff, who donated design and illustration work to the military, created a free variant of Terry and the Pirates for the military newspaper Stars and Stripes. Originally starting the beautiful, adventurous Burma, it was racier than the regular strip. Citation needed. And complaints caused Kniff to rename it Mail Call to avoid confusion. Mail Call was discontinued in 1946. In 1946, Kniff won the first Cartoonist of the Year award from the National Cartoonist Society for his work on Terry and the Pirates. Alright, we got reprints, popular culture. Alright, let's see. Also, alright, so I think that gives us a good little start for Terry. Let's see some of this artwork. Well, how about we do this real quick? Copy. Boop. Let's go here. So the artwork does look very 1930s, but not like in a bad way. Like in a very charming way. That must be Stoop right there. What on earth are they doing? Are they washing each other? This is a very odd cover. Okay. So this is what the pages would have looked like. Very similar to Dick Tracy, where it was a full-on page. Oh, Terry! That must be the Dragon Lady. After all these years, it is man between the Dragon Lady and Terry? I mean, what were you expecting? Okay, so there's, as far as videos go, there's actually a surprisingly few videos about, okay, I don't know if it's, alright, let's see. Let's see if I just do videos, if that will change things. Because a lot of these are just like, oh, unboxing the, I'm going to unbox all the Terry and the Pirates collections. It's like, cool, but can we get like a video about the comic strip? Alright, let's put... see if that helps. Alright, the Library of American Comics. Unboxing. Alright. Also a lot of about the serials. No, not Dick Tracy. Stop writing intros. Okay, a docu-series from Comic Book Historian. Let's check this guy out.
Terry and Welcome back to Comic Book Historians. I'm Alex Schran. Go ahead and click on that juicy red subscribe button down below. And don't forget to order my book, Understanding Superhero Comic Books. Now today we're talking about Milton Caniff, a renowned cartoonist known for the remarkable impact that his comic strips had on the comic book world through his unique style of character representation, political, and social issues. Today we're going to talk about 11 key works and accomplishments of his that affected the comics industry. In the summer of 1933, Milton Caniff began working on a comic strip called Dickie Dare, which was an adventure fantasy strip that ran until early 1934. Despite the title, the comic was not intended for adults, but rather focused on the character's dream of having legendary adventures with famous figures.
I love how the adult figure is drawn much more detail, and the kid character, it kind of looks like Astro Boy a little bit.
Figures such as Robin Hood and King Arthur. Through the strip, Caniff demonstrated his ability to transition from fantasy to reality by gradually shifting Dickie's experiences from dreams to real-life adventures. This technique helped establish Caniff as a masterful storyteller, and his work on Dickie Dare laid the foundation for his later success with Terry and the Pirates. Now, Caniff was hired by the New York Daily News to create a new strip for the Chicago Tribune in late 1934. Patterson asked Caniff to draw a strip about China. So he researched extensively to create what he felt was an accurate depiction of Chinese life and history. He discovered that some Chinese families had a history of piracy, which inspired the creation of the strip Terry and the Pirates.
I mean, it's not just some Chinese families. It was like whole sections of the population. Especially when the English decided that they wanted a piece of the pie.
Strip depicts the adventures of a young boy named Terry Lee, who travels with his adult companion Pat Ryan to different locations, encountering pirates and other fascinating characters. Now, Milton Caniff was also known for his innovative approach to character development. Caniff aged Terry Lee in real time over the course of 12 years, from 1934 to 1946.
I was wondering about that, yeah.
This was considered risky at the time as it could potentially affect the brand permanence of the comic strip. However, Caniff went
What? That's dumb. I mean, they aged up the Robins. So why not Terry?
ahead with the aging of Terry Lee as he believed it was essential to the character and the strip's growth and development. Much like Stan Lee would age characters like Peter Parker in real time in the first 10 years of that Marvel Comics period, which goes against the illusion of change. One of the main characters that was showcased heavily in the strip was the Dragon Lady. She was a pirate queen who was portrayed as ruthless and determined to make a name for herself in a patriarchal society. Her character represented various social and political issues such as gender roles and power dynamics and was considered groundbreaking at the time for its exploration of these themes. Despite her ruthless persona, Dragon Lady also had a romantic side, as she was depicted as having a yearning for Pat Ryan, one of the main characters in the strip. This portrayal of a complex female character who defied traditional gender roles was significant for its time and helped establish Caniff as
Wait. What did Pat say in that? You're a goddess to the men, but I know you're just a conceited woman with too much power. You asked for, I'm going to break you and you're going to like it. That sounds like a line from a BDSM porno. What the hell?
character who defied traditional gender roles was significant for its time and helped establish Caniff as a master of character development and storytelling. John Romita designed the Kingpin's wife Vanessa after Milton Caniff's
Oh yeah, I see it.
Dragon Lady. Pat Ryan was one of the main characters in the Terry and the Pirates comic strip. Pat adopted Terry and they had a Batman and Robin type relationship. In one of the scenes from the 1936 comics, Ryan saved his own life by using his knowledge and intellect to outsmart the Dragon Lady. In this interplay between the two, he literally stabs her in the hand while she's holding a gun to prove that the pen was mightier than the sword. Now, Caniff was known for his ability to incorporate real-world events and political issues into his strips. After the 1937 rape of Nanking, Caniff created a series of dailies that depicted the Dragon Lady rallying Chinese bandits into a fighting army to resist the invading forces of the Second Sino-Japanese War. This storyline was one of many facets of World War II that Caniff explored in his comic strip. Caniff's portrayal of the events in China and the resistance movement was significant for its time and helped raise awareness of the conflict in the East among American readers.
So Terry and the Pirates was what helped get people to realize just how bad the situation with Japan trying to invade the rest of China was getting. And, okay, this is something I have kinda noticed when it came to World War II. A lot of people just focus on the European side of World War II, and when it comes to the Pacific side of World War II, they just focus on, oh yeah, America didn't want anything to do with the war, then Pearl Harbor, and then we dropped 2 nukes on them, and Japanese sad now. And I look at that and I'm like, you guys do know that Japan was brutal during World War II. Like, they committed a considerable number of war crimes. They even had their own Auschwitz where they would literally basically torture their undesirables for scientific purposes. And it's like, you do realize the Japanese were not innocent in that war at all, and they did not need Hitler to lead them into being evil, though they were very capable of being brutal. Yeah. I'm not saying that justifies, the racist attitudes that some cartoonists had at the time, including Dr. Seuss, which he made up for when he wrote Horton Hears a Who. But I am just saying, the Japanese were not innocent in that conflict. And it's very strange how nowadays a lot of people just forget.
Caniff introduced a recurring villainous character named Sanjak in Terry and the Pirates. While Sanjak
Oh yeah, she is definitely a lesbian.
Was not explicitly portrayed as an LGBTQ character, there were some subtextual hints in the storyline that suggested Sanjak's romantic feelings for Terry's girlfriend, April.
That makes it even worse. She's like a tiny little teenager.
Sanjak's aesthetic and behavior could be seen as a reflection of Caniff's willingness to challenge traditional gender roles.
Oh, that's what she looks like, okay.
And stereotypes in his comic strips. Caniff was also known for his ability to depict movement and action in his comic strip scenes. His use of motion lines, dynamic angles, and the integration of verbal sound effects helped bring his fight scenes to life and made them some of the most memorable moments in his work, inspiring later artists such as Carmine Infantino on The Flash. Caniff was also highly skilled in portraying emotion in his comic strips. One example of this was in the October 1941 storyline, where Caniff depicted the characters Dude Henning and Terry processing the death of Dude's love interest, Raven Sherman. Caniff used a variety of techniques to convey the character's grief and emotional turmoil. He used close-up shots to show the character's facial expressions and body language. The result was an emotionally impactful storyline that resonated with readers. John Romita discussed that Raven Sherman's death influenced the production of the death of Gwen Stacy in The Amazing Spider-Man.
Huh. That's an interesting piece of Timbit advice.
Caniff was also skilled in exploring various genres in his comic strip work, including the war genre. During World War II, he used his talents to depict the elegance and uncertainty of air and land battles in his comic strips. His ability to capture the drama and intensity of wartime scenes was exceptional, and his depictions of battles were often described as cinematic in their scope and detail. He used dynamic angles, dramatic lighting, and careful attention to detail, and chiaroscuro that he learned from his friend.
Oh, that dogfight scene in the middle there looks so cool. It looks very fluid. It looks like something. Looks like still panels from an animated film, actually.
Sickles to create scenes that were both visually stunning and emotionally impactful. Kniff was best known for his work on Terry and the Pirates, but he's also known for his next strip, Steve Canyon, which was an action-adventure comic strip that followed the adventures of a pilot tackling various challenges around the world. One of the notable aspects of Steve Canyon was Kniff's introduction of heroes who face more realistic and relatable everyday struggles. Stan Lee would also do this, as both writers had their characters struggling to pay rent. Additionally, Kniff used his work on Steve Canyon to explore personal relationships and help pioneer what could be seen as the romance comics format. Kniff was a highly skilled
Yeah, time to get romantic.
and influential cartoonist whose legacy has had a significant impact on the comic world. He produced a wide range of notable works, each showcasing his unique talents and contributions to the medium. He was a visionary artist who challenged the boundaries of comic storytelling, and his ability to portray emotions, realistic situations, and people continue to precede and influence comic artists and writers to this very day.
Thank you, comic book historian, for that brief little video there. I wonder if there's anything else I can hop off on. No. Oh well, I do have a couple of other articles. So I found this, the text message, National Archives, Milton Caniff explains Terry and the Pirates. So I'm guessing this is an interview from 2015. Well, not interview, obviously, like he died. Oh, hi, hon. Thank you for joining. But it looks like this was just taking bits and pieces from what Caniff has said to, I don't know, piece together how an interview would have worked out. I'm not entirely sure. We're just going to hop right into this. Alright, by David Langbart. In early 1945, Terry and the Pirates was one of the most popular daily comic strips printed in U.S. newspapers. Alright. The strip launched in October 1934 and written by Milton Caniff, 1907 to 1988. Was a serial action adventure strip set in China and its environs. Once World War II began, the action took place within the context of that conflict. Over time, the strip became one of the most widely read in U.S. history. It also appeared in overseas newspapers. This has stopped being funny. Caniff created a large cast of characters who moved in and out of the strip over time. The main characters were the eponymous Terry Lee, above as an officer in the U.S. Army Air Force after World War II, and Pat Ryan, who initially, I'm guessing he's trying to say, went to China searching for a lost mine and then got caught up in a series of adventures and misadventures. Terry and Pat are ably assisted by two Chinese, Connie and Big Stoop, who, while instrumental in the success and survival of the heroes, also provided comic relief. Perhaps the most famous supporting character is the Dragon Lady. Depicted as a glamorous but ruthless pirate leader before World War II, during the war, she becomes a resistance leader, only to revert to her old habits once peace returns to China. This is the Dragon Lady. Alright, given the worldwide popularity of the strip in February 1945, the Office of War Information, the U.S. World War II era propaganda agency, asked Caniff to record a general talk for broadcast in Australia. An earlier recorded interview with Caniff broadcast where there has been well received. Caniff agreed and recorded his comments on March 17th, 1945. Oh, so this is an interview. Great! Alright. While there is no known audio version of the talk, the OWI records include a transcript in which Caniff explains the genesis of the strip and how he prepared it on a day-to-day basis. The following is an image of the first page, followed by the text of the remaining pages. Punctuation and spelling are from the original. Okay, I am going to do my best to read this, folks. Alright, let's see if I can open this. Can I? Nope. Alright. I'm gonna do my best. Alright, Talk by Milton. Thank you and hello, Australia. Terry and the Pirates is a visual novel written and drawn in the form of a cartoon strip to appear in 6 daily black and white installments and in full color page form on Sunday. The story is translated into 8 languages and is carried in newspapers in 11 countries besides the United States. It has an estimated 22 million readers. Terry is but one of many such strips produced in the United States, and their popularity may be estimated by the fact that the Army and Navy and Office of War Information see to it that copies of the daily releases are sent to American soldiers, sailors, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen wherever they may be serving over the world. Alright. Comic strips are not written exclusively for children. Rather, they are designed to entertain any person who may come upon them in his newspaper. There are 2 principal types of strips, those which tell a joke each day and those which tell a running story in short daily episodes. Terry is of the latter variety. Their presence in a newspaper is for unblushingly commercial purposes in that they lead the prospective reader to buy, but today's copy, which he has in his hand, but tomorrow's edition. The cycle is meant to be endless and usually is. I shall attempt to give you something of the background for Terry that is being the one strip I know most about. You people in Australia know the lure of far places and high adventure. Your ancestors and mine left comfortable homes in the old world to pioneer a new life in an unknown... an unknown country. The advent of swifter means of transportation has widened our horizons, but has not diminished our curiosity about people and places over the rainbow. With this in mind, I began in 1934 to prepare a cartoon strip that would appeal to the American liking for rostering adventure. The locale was to be the Orient generally and China particularly. Many books have been written on that geographical area, but prior to the Japanese invasion in 1937, the country around Chongqing has not become the much documented section it is today. Primarily, China and its border territory offered a background against which anything could happen. The characters for my narrative needed to appeal to as many types of readers as possible. The hero, Terry, I decided to make a yellow-haired American boy about 10 to 12 years old. His companion in the initial episodes I drew as a handsome black-haired Irish-American named Pat Ryan. The two were to encounter violent physical trials, and I did not wish your Terry to be beating villains 3 times his size in illogical combat, hence the full mature Ryan was to be the prime belligerent as well as a believable counter for the succession of lovely ladies that they were to meet. So basically Pat was there to do all the adult stuff while Terry was there to attract all the audiences. Alright. As the strip opened, Terry and Pat stepped from an ocean liner onto the docks of an unnamed city in the China coast. No. Their purpose was to find a mine staked out years before by Terry's grandfather, the map of which the lad had inherited. As the story progressed, the two Americans never did acquire the mine. In fact, it was never my intention that they should. Well, that's a bummer. I want to see the mine. The device was used only to get my yarn underway. Such riches would have destroyed the possibilities of intrigue and limited the testing of the hero's resources, the very marrow of an adventure story. I shall retell 10 years of continuity, but if the short introduction invokes curiosity in my listeners, it will demonstrate the basic premise of the cartoon strip. Suspense. You in Australia have read the Arabian Nights tales of how Shirazi saved herself from beheading by telling a story that never ended. The technique is much the same as that used in the narrative strip today. As the story of Terry continued, the pirates mentioned in the title gave way as villains in favor of the Japanese who invaded China during the so-called Incident of 1937. At about this time, I found that the models I had been using for the characters in the strip, selected after the experimental sketches had been drawn, were not as colorful as my friends whose exploits in real life were more fascinating than fiction. I therefore selected a pilot named Frank Higgs, with whom I had gone to college, and drew him just as he appeared at the time in the uniform of the China National Aviation Corporation. The success of this venture prompted the continued use of such actual people. Today, nearly every figure in Terry is patterned after a living man or woman. Perhaps my friends in Australia would like to know the actual physical preparation of this original writing and drawing that goes into Terry. The rectangle on which the pictures are to be produced is ruled in pencil exactly twice the size you see in the print. Then the 4 or more blocks for individual illustrations are indicated. The first creative step is the writing of the dialogue above the heads of the figures to be drawn in later. I do this instead of typing out the story on separate sheets of paper in order to better visualize the illustrations to come. I don't complete one entire strip each day. Instead, I write all 6 daily releases, then start at the beginning and pencil the drawings for all 6. Next, with a final steel pen, I trace over my pencil lines to obtain minute detail, finally using a brush to obtain the effects of light and shade. The ink used is of the heavy black India variety, which facilitates the transfer of the drawings to printing blocks by a photo engraving process too complicated to be explained here. All of this sounds quite casual. Actually, before a word is drawn or a line written or word is written or a line drawn, every detail of background, mechanical objects, uniform details, etc. must be double-checked for accuracy. Terry has grown from the child of 1934 to a second lieutenant, corresponding to pilot officer in the RAAF in the United States Army Air Forces. Consequently, each change in military dress, equipment, and usage must be accurate enough to please the millions of readers in and out of military service, who expect their fictional favorites to be portrayed correctly. I'm sure he probably got a few letters in the past being like, hey, you did this wrong on the uniform. Or not, the soldiers were probably a little too busy trying to kill Nazis to worry about that. Alright, to achieve this authenticity, I keep an elaborate file of photograph. I'm assuming that I keep an elaborate file of photographs obtained from many sources. In addition, I interview returning combat soldiers to keep myself posted on the latest turn in slang and usage. My studio is filled with objects which must be drawn and redrawn so often that a photograph will not suffice. My studio is in a large white building which also contains living quarters. It stands on the side of a low range of mountains not far from the mighty Hudson River in the state of New York, and is 45 miles from the city of New York. I work at night because the telephone seldom rings during the early morning hours. Oh, well, yeah, I guess that makes sense. If you are interested in the way we in the United States do things, remember we are just as absorbed by everything Australian. In my particular case, my young friend Terry may lead me into an intensive study of your country. If a turn of his fortunes brings his aircraft down on Australian soil, I must know all I can about you. Even if I am only an armchair globetrotter, I must do my best to use my models well. Terry never made it to Australia. But for those interested in rollicking, if dated, adventures set in the pre-World War II and World War II era Far East, the Library of American Comics has republished the entire run of Terry and the Pirates by Milton Caniff in 6 volumes. The strip continued from 1947 to 1973 under the authorship of another author-illustrator after Caniff left the cartooning syndicate. Alright, during World War II, Caniff also produced Mail Call. Milton Caniff was a giant in U.S. cartooning world. Alright. Okay, so that does give a little bit of insight of how he approached drawing the comic strip. Now, I'm gonna... What's this? Again? Alright, so Terry and the Pirates, 90th anniversary, salute to one of comics' greatest strips. Alright, before we get too into this, that article mentioned the 6 volumes of the Terry and the Pirates, and let's see if I can go back and find it. There are a couple of unboxing videos of just those comics, so let's see if I can find the one I was looking at earlier. That is almost an hour long. I cannot do that. Alright. Huh? What? That was there? Hold on.
Business. This is the big time. Didn't you just need that?
Yeah.
That's what we need, Lieutenant. You remember Malden's cartoon of this long, long line of trucks, jeeps, and trucks?
This is part 1 of 5. Milton Caniff draws Dragon Lady, talks to Sheldorf. Alright, part 1 of 5. Let's see what this
Trucks and
is.
jeeps and guns, and
It's cold, Sean. We're just starting to heat it.
Oh.
the guy's blowing his horn. And somebody says, "That's what we needed, Lieutenant." The whole Third Army was down in the beachhead.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Fuzz, as Mort always points out, that Lieutenant Fuzz, that's Mort Walker.
Yeah, right.
Can you imagine old Mort in charge of prisoners in Italy?
Oh, God, no.
Oh, he was?
That's what he was he never drew anything during the war because he was an officer.
Ah,
And an officer,
just
as
didn't do it.
Dave Brager found out, can't make a comment. You can't make a joke about Eisenhower or Patton or anybody when you're an officer. But as an enlisted man, you can.
God.
But of course, the perks for being a second lieutenant are a lot nicer than being a buck sergeant. Life is much rosier. That's why Dave wanted it. I guess that's why Mort wanted it too. But Mort was in ROTC in college. He had it going for him.
Oh.
I came out of the ROTC a sergeant. My father was so proud of that thing because that's all he had ever made in the Army. he became a top sergeant. That meant him a diploma.
Can you guys hear the sound okay? Let me know, because I'm kind of picking up on what he's saying, because I think he's just talking about different people he's met in the war, well, or met from the war, and just about different people in his life, but let me know if you guys can hear okay.
Are we recording? We're on, huh?
It's on.
All right, now. I'll do this way. Now, the point of this is that you got a request as a rule from a fan, and you're delighted, you're pleased as punch. But you don't have time to go into it as elaborately as I'm going to now for every request. This happens to be a special one, so you'll see the technique involved. Rather than play around with sketching, the placement is like this. It always works out the same way. Everybody's ears are the same length as their noses. So I'm really building a box.
Wait a minute, everyone's ears are the same length as their noses? Huh. No, looks like Terry's nose is a little smaller than his ears. Well, except in this one, it looks about the same. I guess I can see it here and here too.
I hope it's picking up, but it won't be soon if it hasn't already. This is going to be the Dragon Lady, and although these things have been drawn many times before, they're never the same. No two of them are ever the same. Lush lips that you can see building up here.
I cannot see
The
it.
secret of drawing women always is every line is curved. There are no straight lines in women. Even their fingernails are curved, as men's fingernails are blunt and sharp on the edges.
Yeah, that helps.
Okay, now I'm
Very
starting to
ladies.
see it a little bit more now.
Oriental earrings, these are all trademarks of the kind of character. The high neck to Chinese dress. You can see it building here now. One thing different about this drawing is that I'm going to do it with crayon and color. And then give it quite a different effect. Now, however, I'll go to the brush for the basic outline.
Oh yeah, this is what he was mentioning in that interview. The brush that comes after that.
Nothing like having a photograph with the bottle closed. Being left-handed, you start the other side of the picture first. Otherwise, you put your hand in it.
Oh, so it's like a brush inking. Okay.
That's what I meant about the curved line, the soft curved line.
I wonder what his favorite character to draw is. I'm guessing it's the Dragon Lady just because that's the one he's doing here, but I don't know, maybe because she's so iconic, that's why he's drawing her, but I wonder who his favorite character was to draw.
These harsh edges will be softened by the crayon in a very few minutes. These are the Oriental eyebrows. The hooded cobra eyelids. The eyelashes out to there. And this is just the line of the mouth, which you cannot do fast. The unscrutable thing. high cheekbones. She's always lean. This is one of the toughest lines in the entire drawing, this chin line, because if you make it look like Abraham Lincoln, the bets are off. You notice the speed with which this is done in this particular drawing. It's not always that fast, of course, but part of this is just having done it before. Part of it is the
I kind of accidentally made her jaw look a lot more masculine.
fact that once you start to draw, it's better to do it and not piddle around. That's better for me. That isn't always true. Everybody has his own approach. When you make little blotches like that, they're easily cut out with white after the fact. Chinese-looking characters, which mean nothing really, but they do have an Oriental look.
Oh my. Oh, that comment's gonna go down well. But I wonder if any Chinese person would look at it and be like, I don't know. It kind of looks like this character, but not too much.
About them. They probably mean something naughty, but I don't know. So what I don't know may hurt me. Now the inscription for this thing will go down here, and in terms of just drawing, you balance the whole thing on the basis of, this will be the inscription to the person who...
Not on camera. Move it up a little bit.
There you go.
Unfortunately, I can't do both. We've either got to hold it right in one place,
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
or...
just for the,
Yeah.
well, we got the whole drawing. But we're
Yeah.
missing the
Even while you were talking about the inscription, the camera wasn't catching it. Was all.
Mhm.
It is now. Yeah.
That's but I mustn't
Right.
move it. I just remember not to move it. That was,
And the beauty of it is we can just cut the part where we slid it.
yes, oh sure.
Right.
Now, this is where the inscription and the signature will go in this drawing. And I'm mentioning all of these things, which are routine, simply because everybody does them differently. And here, now this line will be the date and the place where it was made. This is for historians, if anybody cares.
For posterity.
This will be the Dragon Lady. And then the name of the recipient. And among other things, this changes the whole aspect of it. If it's just a picture of the Dragon Lady, even though it's an original and not inscribed, then it's like signing a blank check. Anybody could buy it or trade it or whatever. When it's made out to this individual, he's much less likely to trade it even in his estate than he would otherwise.
I have heard that from other authors and artists where they prefer to just sign the book and hand it over rather than make it out to anybody, just in case that person wants to sell the book again. It's like the signature makes it more valuable, but for some reason adding the for so-and-so, that kind of diminishes the value a little bit. I would just be slap happy to get an original, so I would not mind if it was signed to someone else, but whatever. Everybody's different.
And this goes to two different people. Charlie and Joan Roberts, a husband and wife who drove up from Pennsylvania to the Cartoon Museum in Westchester County, New York, and wrote a very nice letter with a check, which I shall send on to the Milt Gross Fund, which is the indigent fund of the Cartoonist Society, and they never have any money. It's always empty. This is the check. Page of the
I thought he was like writing on her face for a minute there.
okay. National Cartoonist Society.
Turn it off.
Yeah.
Huh?
Just leave it there. Yeah, turn it off.
I poured you a cup of coffee milk,
Mm-hmm.
so just don't slide the board into it. That's what I was telling you.
All right.
I wonder how long it takes for that brushwork to dry. Because he's like manhandling that check all over the picture. So I wonder how long it took for the paint to dry.
If they can read that, I guess they can. Color sketch of the dragon. It says,
Those Sharpies blot a lot.
Alright, okay, this interview took place like a year before he passed. Interesting. Now, it looks like they have a couple of other, they have 4 more parts of this specific interaction, but I'm just going to link part 1 down below. If you want to follow the rest of the parts, then go ahead and follow the rest of the parts. But let's see what this article here by Peter Bosch. This one says, Terry and the Pirates, the 90th anniversary, salute to one of comics' greatest strips. This was just this past October, so fairly recent article. Alright, 90 years ago, on October 22nd, 1934, that young Terry Lee stepped off a ship in China, there to find out about a mine belonging to his grandfather. And from that humble start, Terry and the Pirates would win a daily readership of over 25 million. While its creator, writer, and artist Milton Caniff spent 12 years making it into a newspaper comic strip that is now spoken of with the same reverence as is paid to Alex Raymond's Flash Gordon and Hal Foster's Prince Valiant. And Caniff's cinematic art style, developed over time, would inspire several generations of future artists, including Jim Aparo, Gene Colan, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, John Romita Sr. and Jr., Alex Toth, Jerry Ordway, Gil Kane, Al Williamson, and Doug Widely. Back in the first day of 1934, along with Terry, was his adult friend and financier of... Wait, he was a financier? I thought he was just his friend and mentor. But okay, financier. Pat Ryan. In short order, they would be joined by a third member in their expedition, George Webster Confucius, aka Connie, whom they hired to be their interpreter. Regrettably, Connie was the first of the Asian stereotypes readers would encounter in the strip. Yeah, he does look like a stereotype. Alright, and here's one of the pages. It does look very, like, bright and like, not childlike, but very, like, whimsical in its way in the early days, whereas in the later comics was hardened. Alright. During the initial 2 weeks of the strip, Terry, Pat, and Connie became the target of unsavory criminals who had heard there was a treasure to be had in the mine. But these bad people were nothing compared to the strip's most famous villain, who would appear later, the most notorious female pirate of all of China, the Dragon Lady. When she was introduced in the strip, she identified herself as Lai Chao San, who was a real female pirate in China in the 1920s and 1930s. Oh, really? Did not know that. The strip was off and running with some of the greatest supporting characters this side of Dick Tracy and Batman. In the final 6th volume of their reprint series, The Complete Terry and the Pirates, IDW Publishing put together a 5-page pictorial of the major characters who appeared in the strip during Caniff's 12 years on it. And oh, what an incredible group it is. So,
Yeah, there's Connie. Yeah, he does look like an Asian stereotype. But it's really funny how the Dragon Lady doesn't look like an Asian stereotype. Alright, so we got... Oh, so that's Normandy, who married the, Nazi. The Skull, a short-lived pirate whose corny mask and costume were meant to be his most fearsome attribute. Alright, Poppy Joe. Crunch. Captain Blaze. Oh, that's Captain Judas. He does not look like what I thought he was going to be. There's Burma. And Inspector. Oh, Big Stoop. There he is. He's also an Asian stereotype. Nasty Sandhurst. April Kane. Cue ball. Wow. Sandrak. Yeah, Sandrak, when looking at her in this picture, it's like, yeah, I can tell that they were definitely going for the lesbian vibes. But yeah, a lot of... Oh, a monkey! Hey! Alright, Slits. Didn't take long before the strip's popularity had sponsors come calling for a radio program based on it. In 1937, Terry and the Pirates became a hit show for kids and continued on and off until 1948. I wonder how long this... Well... Probably shouldn't risk it. Alright, Terry and the Pirates had one of the noisiest but most atmospheric openings on radio. In July 1937, Japan invaded China in devastating numbers, beginning in the Second Sino-China War during the time of Japanese aggression, and then through World War II from 1941 through 1945, millions of Chinese civilians and military personnel were killed. Caniff had been planning on taking the strip in a more serious direction for some time, but this major war would prove to be the pivotal point in which the strip had to change. And in the strip, at the end of March 1938, but written and drawn earlier, it was the Dragon Lady who went from villainess to becoming a protector of her country, leading her followers against the Japanese. The Terry and the Pirates strip was entering its greatest period, and it was in this time that Caniff became one of the 3 most influential comic strip artists in America. While Foster drew beautiful pictures of the days of King Arthur and Raymond brought shine and glamour to the planet Mongo, Caniff drew the nitty-gritty of real life and went with many a soldier trotting through the mud day after day. Yeah, in this panel, definitely you can see it doesn't look very kid-friendly anymore. One unfortunate misstep in the greatness of the strip occurred in 1940 when Columbia Pictures turned it into a 15-chapter movie serial. Oh. Like many other comic and pulp-related characters that Columbia adapted to the big screen, they got it very wrong. The name of the character was about all that made it on the film. The studio, known for its cheapness under head Harry Cohn, turned out a chapter play that had Caniff walking out of the theater screaming after seeing the first episode. Oh my goodness. It looks like they made Pat the main character for one I can see.
Fang Pat Dragon Lady. Alright, but the strip did carry on, and with a shock to its many readers. In 1941, one of his women characters, Raven Sherman, a benefactor of homeless Chinese displacement by Japanese forces, is thrown from the back of a speeding truck by a villain in order to slow the pursuit by Terry in a following vehicle. She lands on her head and face and, following a devastating last few moments, dies. World War II saw China facing many deaths of her own and becoming a full ally of the United States and other members of the free world in their fight against the Axis powers. We already know who the Axis powers are. Milton Caniff and Terry and the Pirates kicked everything into high gear to help win that fight. Right, side note, with the war, Caniff had to become a master of minutiae regarding our armed forces. If he didn't get it right, he would quickly hear from his service readers. Oh my god, that must be all of the feedback he received. GI means government issue. It's engine, not motor. Look up number of buttons on GI blouse. That's actually kind of cute. I guess they did have time to write to him to let him know when he got something wrong. Alright. In a break from other comics, Terry Lee actually grew up in the strip over the years, and in 1943 earned his pilot's wings, something he wanted very much, but Caniff showed it wasn't all glory. Following Terry's acceptance into the Air Force, he was instructed on how he should respect those who put him in the air. The below strip's writing was so meaningful to all the different areas of the American military service that it not only became the most reprinted of all the Terry strips, but its text was read into the Congressional Record. Just goes to show that yes, your writing is important. Alright, want to see larger versions of the strip in your desktop browser? Simply right-click the image and choose Open Image in New tab. Okay. 2 years later, Terry looked back on the women of his life in this Thanksgiving strip, in which Caniff admits, of course we know this is just an excuse to get some Thanksgiving pinups to the GIs in the occupation zones. Okay by you? Aw. The finale for Caniff occurred December 29th, 1946. Though the strip would continue on, he was ready to move on to a new strip, this time to one he would own, Steve Canyon. Terry and the Pirates was owned by the newspaper syndicate, but he left with a high point on poignancy. Aww. Oh, what a glorious 12 years it was. But wait, during World War II, from October 11th, 1942 to January 10th, 1943, there was a oh yeah, we've already been through that. However, a man who didn't have humor or heart was a newspaper publisher in Florida who did not take kindly to the fact that he was paying for the exclusive printing rights to... okay. Mail call. Alright. Page. Oh. Okay, that was it. I thought that would be a lot longer. Alright. Let's take a little look at these. No more red ball on U.S. airplane. The colonel's eagles always face front, which is oldest service. Air Force, not Air Corps. Only 2 4-star generals now? Why hash marks? What is West Point motto? That's so cute that he made that little doodle of himself. I'm sure the army guys got a kick out of it.
Alright. Alright, let's see if I can find that video I was telling you guys about before. Yeah, I don't want the episodes. 10 minutes with. Okay, I don't know what that is. Looks like another stream. Inception stream. Radio show. Okay, this I believe is what I was looking for.
Really see the Ben Day patterns and everything. Just really, really well put together books. And then,
Alright, so it looks like this is a review of copies. Oop. Of the reprints.
hey there everybody, thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today I'm looking at the first of a series of books in a very special project by Ted Adams's Clover Press. Ted is a really, really great guy. He was one of the founders of IDW and has been super supportive to Sean and I through everything that we've done. Ted was kind of the guy that got Dave started on Strange Death of Alex Raymond and has been super supportive of us through that whole process of getting that put out, and then continues to be super helpful to Sean. He left IDW and went and made his own boutique press, Clover Press, but they got the rights to the American Library of Comics version of Terry and the Pirates, and they're doing like a deluxe version of these books that will be coming out. So this is the first volume, and then they actually released along with this, if you pre-ordered it, they've got a cool where it's a subscription. So I've subscribed, and then I'll just be getting 2 of these a year. But part of that subscription process was you get book 13, which I'll go through in a little bit. But it's pretty much like, you know, the history of Terry and the Pirates. I've never read Terry and the Pirates, so I'm really excited to. I dipped in a little bit, but you know, I'm expecting that the story is pretty much just like comic strip action adventure stuff, so I don't need to break that down. I just wanted to give people a preview of what this looks like. First off, it's a huge book, so you can see this is our buddy Brandon Graham's Rain Like Hammers. This is a normal like Image comic trade paperback, so this is a huge book. They said that
It's like a coffee table book more than anything.
the reason that they did this huge size on these is because on this collection, for the first time, the I'm gonna blank on the name of it. What is it? It's the place in Ohio State, the Billy Ireland cartoon collection in Ohio State. Open up the vaults and let them come in and scan the original artist proofs from Milt Caniff's studio of the Sunday pages. So this is the best quality Sunday pages you can get really in reproduction. Now those are still artist proofs from the newspaper, so you know, to my eyes, someone who's become really picky about reproduction, it's still, you know, it's not what it would be like if we still had access to the original artwork and you could scan the artwork and do that. But this is absolutely the best, given the available resources, reproduction of the Sundays that you can
It looks like he bruised his thumb down there. You can see the bruising underneath his fingernail.
get. So that's really, really cool. And these are the original size that they would have been released at in Caniff's local newspaper, is what it said in the front, which is how they determined the size of the book. So that's really cool. In the little bit that I did read, it's really interesting to see what would now be seen as completely inappropriate characters, racial characters, and that's just, I'm glad that they're not editing that stuff out. It's history. That's how things were, and I think it's better to be able to see how things were than to go back and edit that out and forget it. So I'm glad that they've
Yeah, acknowledge the past.
You can't just completely erase the past decisions of creatives, because if you erase that, then people will just eventually forget that it happened, and we shouldn't we shouldn't forget that it happened.
Kept that, kind of dialect and stuff that they've put in there, and the racist caricatures. This was started in 1935. It started in, 1934, early December 1934. Yeah, first week of December 1934, December 9th, so second week. It's also interesting to note that Flash Gordon would have started in January of 1934, so they're talking about this as like one of the seminal adventure strips. I didn't look up when Prince Valiant had started, but it's interesting to see this kind of style compared to what we know Alex Raymond was doing on Flash Gordon, which was much more illustrative. This is more cartoony, and that's, in Strange Death of Alex Raymond, Dave goes into that quite a bit. One thing I was interested to see in this is that Milt Caniff, on a quick glance through the art, is not like the Milt Caniff that we know yet. Like the looseness and the brushiness of it all isn't there yet. It's a lot more clean line, and there's a lot.
I'm realizing Pat looks a lot like Superman. Like, I'm really seeing the similarities between him and Superman.
Less use of these dramatic blacks everywhere. You see them starting to pop up in the backgrounds, but this looks like older cartoon strip stuff to me. Something else that's cool that they've done in this is they have the date, and then each strip has a title. Because they have the space of the Sundays in there, there's a little bit of border in between here, but I'm glad that because they had extra space to play with, they did that. This seems like a really good way to document as close to what it looked like as possible, which is what you want out of an archival project like this. In terms of reproduction, again, it seems to vary strip by strip, and I understand that they're working with the best available resources. Sometimes they just have the best available newspaper thing that they've got, or an artist's proof that they've got. Sometimes they've got negatives, and then sometimes if it's in the Billy Ireland, I'm sure, given that they scanned the artist's proof, that they were scanning the actual art. So sometimes it's a little gummed up, sometimes it looks really nice. From a distance, it all looks pretty good, but sitting there reading it, I can definitely see, it's so unfortunate that, like, when these things were being made, people just didn't value the originals, and it's no fault of Clover Press that they just don't have access to those materials, and it's just truly heartbreaking.
I wonder how much, if anybody has saved those original Terry and the Pirate newspaper pages. I wonder how expensive they are, because they have to be worth at least a couple grand. I don't know. Is it on eBay? Well, there's this one, which is looks like a comic, and it's $650. But yeah, I'm guessing like the OG newspaper would be hideously expensive.
Breaking to me that some of the masterpieces of the medium have just gone missing because people didn't keep the materials. And I think, with scanning now, we all going to have that stuff forever. But it is a really lovely book, and I know that they've done everything they can to get the best possible resources. So that's not me knocking Clover Press at all. This is an amazing project. It's a really nice, obviously huge hardcover book. So these are really cool covers where you can really see the Ben Day patterns and everything. Just really, really well put together books. And then extra cool, since this is like history and we're going to be history buffs, is this volume 13. There's going to be 12 of these, I guess, in this. I think that's what it is, 12 of them. And then this volume 13 is basically a history of the making of Terry and the Pirates and Milt Caniff's career and everything. And it has a lot of where they can get scans of original art. Obviously, I haven't read this whole thing. I just gotten this in the mail a few hours ago. But here you can see some scans of some original art, and so you can see really what Caniff was up to. Hopefully, as it gets later in the series, they have more and more of those, because the Billy Ireland has a lot of the originals. So hopefully that kind of stuff will be kept. But man, it's just so cool to see all this stuff. It's fun to see like how big he worked. Just all these pictures of him in his studio with mannequins, and there's all these publicity shots where Caniff's got like models in the studio, which is funny to me because I wouldn't like Alex Raymond. Yeah, you'd see him as someone who has models, but I would have never thought Milt Caniff was like setting up lighting and stuff like this. He seems like someone who could make stuff up out of his head, and his style suggests that to me. So sometimes
Well, he did say in that one interview that most of the people in the comic, eventually, they were based on real people he knew. So
I wonder, like with these publicity shots, if it wasn't just like, oh, this looks cool. I've got sexy ladies sitting around in my studio. Like, I'm pretty sure Milt Caniff didn't need to have this dude to draw characters from Terry and the Pirates, and I'm sure he didn't need to like chain people up in his studio.
But where's the fun in drawing if you don't chain a few people up in your studio?
I don't know. That's just kind of funny to me. I don't quite believe it. Like, this seems like stuff that somebody could make up. But it's fun. It's fun to see all that. One thing on a quick flip through that really jumped out to me is this page here, this spread here, where to commemorate the 10th anniversary of Terry and the Pirates, a bunch of other cartoonists drew Terry and the Pirates characters, and these are all really well reproduced. But you got Hal Foster, Harold Gray, a bunch of, like, here's Simon and Schuster. Sorry, not Simon and Schuster, Siegel and Schuster. So just, it's cool to see all of these big names doing his stuff and paying tribute to him. Funny, no Alex Raymond in there, given what Dave speculates in Strange Death of Alex Raymond. But I had to get this. Yeah, I mean, working on Strange Death of Alex Raymond really made me fall in love with these old strips in a way I never had before, and respect these artists. And I know IDW had these out before, but it was just too much to go back and buy it all. But now that it's like a subscription and I can buy them one at a time, and I allow myself to get new books, I don't go back and buy all the old ones I want, but I allow myself to get the new ones I want. I had to pick these up, and especially to get this. I know it's going to be a while before I can read through all this and really take it in, but to have this all is really cool. So if you have not got on this yet, get on the subscription. This is awesome. This is just real history here, and a real lesson for every artist. So I could not recommend this enough. It's a really beautiful thing, and I'm really glad that Ted got it from IDW and gets to do it over at Clover Press.
Alright, I think that gives us a very good idea about how the reprints are going today. So I think we got a pretty good amount of information in the stream. Lots of investigations. So I believe this will just go ahead and end the stream for now. So thank you for watching. If you liked the stream, please leave a like, leave a comment, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!